I was just supposed to shake hands. That's it, not sign a treaty, not sign. Away my future, not end up half naked in front of a lavender-skinned goddess with glowing eyes who just declare I was her royal breeder in front of what looked like 400 alien nobles and a seven-eyed scribe drooling on parchment. It started. Simple Earth's first contact with the empire of Serapis. They asked for our greatest linguist, but bureaucracy being what it is, they got me Nathan Calloway, assistant translator, level 3 clearance, part-time vending machine repair guy at the embassy. The guy above me got food poisoning from alien seafood. The guy below me was still high from licking a ceremonial welcome scroll that left me. I was nervous, sure, but confident enough to smile and extend my hand when the princess floated in, literally floated, draped in silk, gliding like a goddess. Her body shimmered, curse exaggerated by some kind of glittering exo gown that left very little to the imagination. I tried not to stare at her chest, which had faint runes that shifted every time she breathed. One of them looked suspiciously like the word fertile. Your Grace, I said, going diplomat, it's an honor to meet you on behalf of Earth. Then I shook her hand, a simple touch, firm grip, warm. She blinked. I smiled. That's when things spiraled out of control. The music stopped. The trumpets fell silent. The translator fish in the bowl next to me exploded into a puff of steam. Every Serapis guard took a step back and drew their ceremonial staffs. That's what I'll call them. One guard dropped his, which flopped and bounced twice, still not sure if it was alive. The princess's lips parted and she looked me up and down slowly, like she was assessing something more than my diplomacy skills. You have chosen, she said softly with that sacred gesture. You accept the role of royal breeder. My face must have looked like someone smacked me with a frozen turkey. I'm sorry, what now? I asked. The scribe announced, it is done. The handshake of conception is complete. Earth seed shall merge with Serapis blood. Praise. The touch there was actual cheering. Someone released flower petals, another blue bubbles. A drummer hit a beat I've only ever heard during mating dances and Discovery documentaries. I tried to step back, but the princess held onto my hand firmly, very firmly. I only meant hello, I whispered. In my culture, she said, voice sultry like melted honey, hello means everything. Does it mean consent to galactic mating protocols? I croaked. Yes, she purred, and more. The chancellor stepped forward, tapping a massive scroll. The ancient law is clear. A royal breeder must be chosen via skin-to-skin contact with intention. Your grasp was deliberate, confident, fertile. I moisturize, I offered helplessly with almond lotion. You are ripe, the princess whispered. Another alien in the crowd fainted. I took a breath. I didn't come here to breed. She raised an eyebrow. Oh, but you did, and quite possibly. Well, the laughter from the crowd wasn't mocking, it was aroused. Some were fanning themselves. One alien pressed a button on his chest and began misting pheromones into the princess stepped closer. You are to join me during the fertility eclipse. We must consummate before the twin moons align, or your planet will be deemed barren. Wait, I blinked. If I don't do it, then Earth gets labeled infertile. Yes, you would shame your species, end diplomatic relations, possibly start a war over not doing it. I swallowed. Don't I get a lawyer, you get a lover. I needed water or vodka or a hole to crawl into and die. The worst part, her hand still hadn't let go of mine, and the look in her eyes wasn't just ceremonial, it was hungry. I am Princess Verla of the Serapis, descendant of the womb line, guardian of the scepter, devourer of seed. That last one feels personal, I muttered. It can be someone in the crowd yelled. May his loins be legendary, I choked. She gestured, and suddenly I was being escorted not by force but very firmly toward what they called the chamber of ascension. Soft music played rose-colored. Lights glowed alien attendants, approached with oil's feathered tools and an oddly shaped fruit that vibrated when I looked at it too long. I'm just a translator, I shouted. You translated your desire perfectly, the princess replied. An alien nearby added, your handshake translated into tension. The princess leaned closer, breath cool and sweet. You shall mount the throne by midnight, and I shall mount you. Symbolically, I asked hopefully. She smiled, not even slightly. I tried logic. What if I have a human condition like performance anxiety or hypersensitive toes? That's a thing we have creams for. That the translator, orb beside me, burbled and said, cream application begins now. A hand reached for my belt. I squeaked, no thank you. She tilted her head. You will not deny the call of the moon's eye was trapped in a mix of erotic diplomacy, intergalactic expectations, and cultural mating madness, and my Earth bosses were nowhere in sight, probably back home thinking I was making history. I was just not the kind they'd ever teach in classrooms. My only comfort was that apparently I was now royalty, kind of royalty with a reproductive deadline. As they led me deeper into the palace, chants began echoing through the halls. Breed for peace, mount the moon throne, let the thrust of unity begin. I wondered if this counted as a promotion. I was naked, not physically yet mentally, spiritually, and bureaucratically naked. Apparently once you're declared a royal breeder, modesty becomes optional. Privacy too. I was in a silk-covered chamber surrounded by glowing walls and alien attendants who kept asking questions like, have you been properly warmed, and would you prefer the silver or obsidian bindings? I wasn't even sure what was being bound, but I said silver because it sounded less aggressive. Princess Verla entered, wearing significantly less than when I'd first seen her. Her robes now shimmered in places and vanished in others, depending on how you tilted your head. I tried not to tilt. She held a scroll in one hand and what looked like a glowing cucumber in the other. We must prepare for the fertility eclipse, she said, casually, as if we were going to brunch. I still don't know what that is, I replied, trying not to look at her. Scroll, it's the alignment of our twin moons. It amplifies life energy, breeding during the eclipse, ensures planetary vitality. And if I fail to rise to the occasion, I asked, already regretting the phrase, Earth will be deemed reproductively weak. Our alliance, annulled galactic laughter, will echo for centuries, so no pressure. A small alien floated into the room. He looked like a half-melted marshmallow with 6 arms. We've detected increased phenomenal emissions from subject Earthman, he announced proudly. I'm nervous, I snapped. Then you're halfway there, Verla purred. They had plans for me, elaborate ones. There was a schedule with columns labeled foreplay, ritual, sacred entry, and something called the position of ascension, which involved 0 gravity and 3 support cushions. As I tried to breathe through my panic, the chamber doors burst open, instrued someone who looked like a gladiator mated with a centaur and overdosed on ego. Step away from the princess, he growled. Earth meat has no place in our royal bed. Princess Verla sighed. Krelln still bitter. I should be the breeder, Krelln snapped. I've trained my whole life. I passed the 12 trials of stamina. I have 3 degrees in pleasure. Craft I raised a hand, hey, I have a certificate in basic CPR that explains your soft hands, Verla. Whispered Krellin wasn't amused this. Human can't even survive the gauntlet. The what now the breeding gauntlet, the Princess explained far too casually, a series of sacred challenges, a public display of mating. Readiness, wait, I blinked its. Televised, projected to 76 planets, she said it boosts morale. Krellin smirked. If the human survives, he keeps the title. If not, the throne and the princess are mine. Do I get a say in this? I asked. No, both of them said. I was marched out and handed an outfit made of stretchy fabric. That left nothing to the imagination. The translator orb hovering beside me cheerfully narrated everything now. Equipping human and ceremonial tension. Gear warning, testicles may shift. Unexpectedly, the first challenge was the rising test. Each suitor had to wear tight robes and stand before the court, while Verla walked past them reciting ancient mating poetry. Whoever showed the most royal reaction. One Krellin swelled instantly. The crowd gasped. I panicked and thought of taxes. Politics, my Aunt Karen's cooking, nothing. Help. Then Verla reached me and whispered, remember the handshake. Boom. The crowd erupted. Bells rang. The translator orb screamed, throne worthy. Response detected. Next was the stamina spiral, a rotating platform where we had to perform a sensual dance with gravity. Shifting every 10 seconds, Krellin leapt and spun like a professional gymnast. I tripped over my own leg, fell, rolled, and somehow landed and opposed. The crowd called the submission of Earth. They went wild. Krellin snarled, you mock tradition. I mock gravity. I wheezed, final challenge. The sensitivity trial attendants touched us with feathers, scented oils, and one mildly electric fruit. We had to maintain composure while reciting alien love poems. Krellin trembled during the second stanza. I blacked out mid-poem but woke up in Verla's lap, murmuring something about nectar glands and celestial rhythm. She held up a scorecard, 10 out of 10. I hate him. Krellin snarled, I'm oddly into him. Verla replied as the crowd roared. The Chancellor stood. The human has surpassed expectations. He shall mount the throne tonight during the eclipse again. Symbolic, I asked weakly. No, Verla whispered. Ceremonial, public, passionate. I was crowned with a headdress that looked suspiciously like a fertility idol's lower half, and the translator orb whispered, you are now royalty. Try not to pass out mid-thrust. I had one night to save Earth's honor, satisfy a half alien princess, outlast a jealous ex, and survive what amounted to an intergalactic sex pageant. And somehow I was kind of looking forward to it. I didn't know what was worse, the fact that I had just beaten a genetically enhanced alien sex gladiator in a gauntlet I didn't even train for, or the fact that I was now expected to perform in front of a royal council during a fertility-themed lunar event with 2 moons. Watching like judgmental perverts. The ceremony prep was intense. Alien aides brought me oils, silks, powders, and one tube labeled for maximum grip. I didn't ask questions. They applied everything with such reverence I thought I was being embalmed. Meanwhile, a floating screen showed me past royal breeders, chiseled beings with abs that looked carved by gods, thrusting with such dramatic precision you'd think gravity was optional. I didn't belong here. I was just a regular guy with average skills, questionable flexibility, and a resume that included microwave repair specialist. And yet here I was, Earth's last hope for intergalactic fertility. Street cred, you've trained well, Verla said, examining me like a prized Slab of meat with a crown, define well. I muttered, you survived the gauntlet. Aroused 3 attending priestesses by accident and triggered 2 fertility. Alarms just by sneezing. Those alarms were sensitive, I defended they only respond to active framinal surges. I had no rebuttal. The crowd had gathered in the chamber of convergence, essentially a large amphitheater with pillows-scented vapors and walls that pulsed in sync with the princess's heartbeat, or mine, or maybe both. I didn't ask. I didn't want to know. The eclipse began. Twin moons aligned in the sky, casting a glowing beam directly onto the throne of union. The throne at handrails that worried me. Krellin was forced to watch from the council box, seething while sipping something that smelled like jealousy and crushed aphrodisiac berries. The ceremony began with a chant. Dozens of rogue figures swayed, singing in unison, may the seed be seen, may the moons be pleased, may the human breed and not explode. That last line didn't comfort me. Verla stepped forward, draped in little more than stardust and confidence. She raised her hand to silence the chants. My chosen, she said, looking at me with enough heat to cook dinner. Do you accept the role of royal breeder? I accept, without fully understanding the benefits package. Then let the union begin. The room pulsed with low vibrations. Perfumed steam filled the translator orb floated down and whispered, engagement protocol initiated. Please proceed with synchronized pelvic diplomacy. I took her hand, the same hand that started all this. The crowd collectively inhaled. Verla leaned in and said, Earth's honor now rests on you. No pressure, I whispered back. What happened next I'll summarize carefully. I didn't faint. I didn't fall off the throne. I didn't underperform. I performed. There were cheers, chants, alien flutes. At one point, a giant mural painted itself in real time somewhere in the crowd. An old priest cried tears of joy. Someone shouted, he has the thrust of legend. Another fainted afterward. Verla curled beside me, glowing, literally glowing, and sighed. You shook a hand, then you shook a world. I should put that on my business card. The chancellor approached, holding a scroll. It is official. Earth is now recognized as a feral ally. Your demonstration was exemplary. Krellin stood fuming. This changes nothing. He's still human, weak, temporary, yet Earth seed now flows with royal blood. The chancellor replied, and you lost to a man who didn't know what end of the bed to start from. Verla sat up. Enough, there's more, I asked, checking my vitals. I didn't choose you for your performance alone, she said. I chose you because I needed a weapon. I'm flattered and terrified. There's a faction, she continued, that wants to overthrow the throne. They see my human side as impure. They believe our union makes the bloodline weak. I blinked. You're half human. My mother was a pilot from Earth, crashed here, loved the prince, died giving birth to me. So technically, I'm just bringing this full circle. Yes. She nodded. But they won't stop now that our bond is sealed. They'll come, and when they do, I want them to see exactly why Earth is not to be underestimated. Are you asking me to fight them with what? My charm, with everything you've already shown. I exhaled. So one night of ceremonial thrusting turns into a long-term galactic war, a marriage actually with political implications and benefits unlimited. I looked around. Aliens were bowing. Moons were still glowing. Somewhere a bard was already composing a song about me, probably in minor key. I was still human, still average, still unsure, but somehow I had shaken hands with destiny, and then I shook it a few more times. 3 days later, I had my own chamber, my own guards, and a robe so silky it practically slid. Off with a strong opinion I was no. Longer just the royal breeder I was now. The consort general of Earth relations, which sounded a lot fancier than what I actually did, which still mostly involved diplomatic thrusting, as they like to call it. Alien nobles now bowed when I passed some. Winked one, offered a second princess for backup breeding. I politely declined, mostly because I hadn't figured out how to survive the first one. Verla, however, was already plotting the fertility demonstration. Changed everything, she said, sipping something bubbly and glowing. We've had 8 alliance requests for surrender offers, and 3 enemies demand to know what Earth men eat almonds and stress. I replied, sometimes pizza, whatever it is, it works. You've become symbolic. I didn't ask to be a symbol. I muttered, symbols don't ask, they're forged, usually not with pelvic force. She smirked. You'd be surprised. Apparently my performance during the eclipse had triggered a fertility surge, not just in Serapis, but in nearby planets connected by life field resonance. The official term was the breeder boom. Unofficially, I was being called the earthquake. Verla liked that one. Still, not everyone was thrilled. The rogue faction she'd warned me about had made their move, a group of traditionalists who thought galactic bloodlines should remain pure, unshaken, and certainly unearthed. They sent a message: dissolve the Union or be dissolved. Verla responded by inviting them to dinner. They accepted, unaware I'd be sitting at the head of the table with a goblet in one hand and a smug grin in the other. I thought you wanted me to fight them, I whispered before the meal began. I do, she said, but not with weapons. With wit, with charm, with breeding logic. That was new. The faction leader was a crusty, four-eyed traditionalist with a voice like boiling sand. He glared at me like I'd defiled a monument. This human doesn't belong, he snapped. He is soft, squishy, overly expressive. I'm also right here, I said. He represents impurity. I represent flexibility. I countered, an interstellar stamina. Apparently we demand the annulment of this union, and I demand another pillow. I replied, this throne is murder on the tailbone. The princess took over. He has proven himself in public, in ceremony, and in me. There was silence. Then a few coughs. Someone clapped. A scribe fainted. The leader sneered, you've reduced this court to a theater of mating. No, she said, we've elevated it to one of unity. It's not about lust, it's about life, and he's full of it. I raised my goblet, overflowing. Actually, then we challenge you, the leader growled. A mind duel, one riddle, one chance win, and the alliance stands lose, and you step down from the throne. In her bed, I leaned over. Are we taking this seriously? Always take threats seriously, she whispered. Even the dumb ones, they pose the riddle. What creates without effort grows without form, and binds what should not touch. I froze. I wasn't a riddle guy, I was a sarcasm guy. I make it up and hope no one notices guy. I stalled. That's tricky. Sounds like my cooking. No laughter. I tried again. The answer is desire. A pause, then Verla gasped softly. The elder frowned. The translator or repeated. Desire, confirmed the traditionalist. Face soured like spoiled nectar. Correct. I blinked. Wait, really? I got it right. You got lucky. He hissed. Story of my life. The union stood, the alliance held, and I was officially recognized not just as her consort, but as a strategic asset. Congratulations, Verla said later. You've saved Earth, united 2 empires, and ruined Krellin's sex life forever. All in a week's work. You'll stay here now, she added, as my partner, my power, my breeder. That too. There were still Responsibilities, public events, seminars. On cross-species intimacy, one awkward. Sculpture unveiling, but it didn't matter. I'd arrived by accident shake in a hand, and ended up shaking the foundations of a galaxy, and I wasn't done yet because the princess had just leaned in, whispered round two, and the moons were aligning again.